Youngsook, we just heard a pretty coherent thesis about the enterprise blockchain, the set of issues that this can solve for larger enterprises. And Switch fits in there, carriers fit in there. What are you seeing here in Korea, both in terms of institutional interest and also a switch from, or the balance between consumer projects and real enterprise interest?
First of all, energy should be distributed, and it is a leapfrog. If we build something in North Korea, we do not have to build, centralized energy with a large gas, coal, and oil plants. We can have a distributed or microgrid solar panels in North Korea where they need the most the energy, and that is pretty much a consensus at the moment here in Korea. We said, we will help them to have energy and food. That was the main sort of focus, so that all these big players, Capco and all these, big players are reluctant to do decentralized microgrid. However, they know that they have to go that way. Therefore, they have a small research groups and small team of people who are now working on how to deal with the North Korean sort of energy shortage problems. And there we came the right moment, I think. Switch is helping them to provide this platform so that they can come on our platform to deal with it.
The thing that I keep hearing about North Korea here is, of course, it's, in a way, it's an amazing canvas, right? It's not developed. There can be a lot of opportunity. If the mindset is you're at war with them, nobody much thinks about it. But what I've noticed here in the last week is people are literally, almost shockingly, putting that behind them, right? We were over at the Blue House, and they're talking about all these investment things, and I said, well, what about incentive? What about the sanctions? And they're like, no, they'll go away. And then we were over in the legislature the other day, and they were talking about trade and grid and food, and I said, what about the sanctions? And the guy, we have to go very quickly because they'll be gone soon. Okay, so there's that mindset. Now, one thing is, you're describing the possibility, which I'd never thought about, that North Korea could be a canvas or a lab for new technology and distributed systems.
We just put microgrid, that's it.
Right, and also,
you don't have to change it.
You'll start small in particular cities, and that by its very nature is what a prototype looks like.
That's right.
So this could be one of the great prototype laboratory leap forwards. Is that realistic? Are we having a fantasy here, or is that possible?
Not within a few months, but way back, like within a year, we will give them switch tokens if they provide or if they build solar panels, so that they will have some other incentives rather than, paid by the electricity.
Let's talk about enterprise beyond. Go ahead, Barry. Bring the guy in.
Sorry, now's the chance. Okay.
In the world of technology, you get nowhere without programming fluid, coffee.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that has remained the same from the era of JavaScript, COBOL, through the era of blockchain. The world now has coffee.
Interesting story about the Industrial Revolution is that it was spurred by the introduction of coffee. Whereas prior to coffee, most people just drank beer.
They went to
Because
sleep.
there wasn't access to clean water.
Yeah.
But then eventually coffee was brought in by the Spanish, and the Industrial Revolution later happened. So interesting, huh?
We drank rice water after meal. Rice water. Wow, coffee is everywhere. Yeah.
One of the other.
On that one.
Okay.
One of the other interesting points Marc made is he was talking about enterprise blockchain, where it's needed. And the thesis for Switch fits exactly with what he's seeing in food, in insurance, and other industries. Namely, here you have an industry with many, many players, distributed information in many cities. It doesn't work together coherently as a system. But if it did, there would be enormous value both for operators because they could plan better, and then you could have better carbon markets. So it's interesting, this kind of explains, I think, the value of Switch, and also points out it fits dead center into the thesis that so many enterprises are pursuing now. Namely, there's going to be a lot of corporate interest in it, and then a lot of consumer interest in participating in that as a change mechanism.
Yeah. Switch is now cooperating with the momentum token, which is intrinsic value, trying to put the current existing companies on the momentum platform to buy supermarket foods and shoes and clothes and whatever that you wish to buy with the momentum token. Therefore, it is we can actually bring almost everything on our platform, Switch platform, cooperating with the momentum. Therefore, it will be a huge basic platform.
This is a trend that we're seeing with the proliferation of coins. They have to interoperate, right? And they could either inefficiently interoperate through an exchange back to fiat level, or they could cooperate among themselves because momentum token is exchangeable for many things, or Bancor is exchangeable for many things. And what we're seeing is with cities that care a lot about energy, they're using a Switch kind of as a staking mechanism or as a reserve currency that's based on the sun and is based around moving towards a more sustainable future. But all of this should interoperate with other programs so that for the consumer it's seamless. And in a way, that's part of what you described at first, right? Which is we have to make this a simple experience. We can't be going through an exchange every 5 minutes to do something.
Yeah, so that's definitely a great point. And something that just came to mind while you were speaking was, the other wave that we're seeing in 2018 is kind of the rise of what many call security tokens, but what Miko Matsumura, who you spoke with yesterday, refers to as asset-backed tokens, right? And the idea is that by tokenizing assets, we provide access to individuals that otherwise don't have it. And what's fascinating to me about Switch is, in a way, it's an asset-backed token backed by carbon, the reduction of carbon. And it's not necessarily priced based on that, but it's a resource that's tradable across the globe that has some clear intrinsic value, at least the reduction of carbon.
Yeah.
And so Switch ties in with that trend as well. It's almost one of the early adopters of the asset-backed token.
You know who writes eloquently about this is Bill Tye. Bill observed that the world has operated on the petrodollar since 1945. So in a way, what's the value basis of the world economy? Well, oil's been very important. In a way, the petrodollar, after the U.S. went off the gold standard and it was basically, you care about oil, is tokenized oil. So the world works on tokenized oil. And yet now the most valuable things that we have are electricity. As Bill says, if you had a choice between turning off oil or turning off electricity, you'd probably pick oil because you'd have an electric car. And, ladies and gentlemen, we're being interrupted by an important news bulletin. At this very hour, the price of all tokens has gone up. That's my cell phone. My cell phone.
Okay, we have to close.
Okay, let's just wrap this up.
Yes.
Here's the point that I was making. Bill Tye makes an eloquent point that as we move to an electric economy, we're moving away from the petrodollar, which is tokenized oil, and we're moving towards more electricity-based things. That in a way, the value of oil will go down over time, and the value of things that are denominated in electricity go up. And so Switch, in fact, because it's based on a renewable energy and uses kind of the sun as a reserve, and it's kind of based on the price of carbon, right? The price of carbon goes up as we get less interest in fossil fuels. That's an example of both an asset, but also a way of betting in kind of the long term, away from oil.
Agreed, yes. And it's a trend that we're seeing. So what better asset to back a global digital currency than carbon?
Well, I think we're done. We've concluded our conversation with Youngsook and with Marc, but coming into us from San Francisco is Omid. Hello, Omid.
Hey, Peter.
Hi.
What's up, Omid?
How y'all doing?
Can I get a call?
Good. We're all getting coffee here. Okay.